Welcome, welcome, welcome to the latest episode of And One. We got the guy, the man, the legend. We got him. His name is Calvin from Her Hoop Stats. I practice saying that all day so I can make sure I say it fast enough. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. It's always good to be with you, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm good now. The Gophers won, and we'll have people let them know where they can all find you. I said Her Hoop Stats, but you are a betting machine. You are all over the place. You can find you at every Illinois State game, men's and women's. I'm guessing.
Yeah, if you're ever at an Illinois State game, not even just basketball, volleyball, whatever, I'll be there. But yeah, Twitter, C Wetzel 31. I got some stuff at Her Hoop Stats is kind of my main outlet, I would say, but got some other freelance stuff at different places. So yeah, I'm around.
He's everywhere. Make sure you look at his stuff. Make sure you check out his stuff. It's very good. He puts up with me multiple times. So God bless him for that part. So we are going to talk about probably one of my favorite topics in college basketball overall. But we'll just say, we're talking about the Big Ten before we say exactly what we're talking about. What's your early season thoughts on the Big Ten? There's a lot of big names.
Oh man, yeah, the Big Ten has impressed me. I think one of my biggest thoughts or takeaways is just that the Big Ten has had a lot of teams that I think have faced some adversity in terms of injuries. And you look at Grace Berger, JC Sheldon. I think even though we're talking about, not necessarily talking about them on this podcast, we'll get into that in a little bit. But um, I look at those two teams in particular, but even on down the line, the Big Ten has just been really impressive at the top as it always is. But in particular this year, I think it's like gonna be a really, really good fight. And Nebraska has had so many injuries. They look good. Just handed Kansas their first loss last night. We're recording this on Thursday, so just a lot of good hoops. Despite even some, this is a conference with a lot of teams who I think when they get some pieces back, be really dangerous in March.
I'm assuming Nebraska players are just waking up right now from that triple overtime game last night. I don't know how much energy they have going into the day, but that was an impressive win. I think we might have set a record for the longest time talking about the Big Ten, not mentioning the name Caitlin Clark. She's been fantastic, 2,000 point score. Congratulations there. But I agree with you. I think it's impressive. I don't know the last time, and I've watched it since 03, 04. The last time the Big Ten's had two top five legit teams in the top five. You have in Ohio State and Indiana. My only question mark ever going forward with them is it's always kind of the same question mark with the Big Ten. Once you get to Sweet 16, Elite Eight-ish, and you're running into the UConn, South Carolina, Stanfords, can you keep it going? I think Michigan got to the Elite Eight last year, but it always seems like they have a shelf life. But I think maybe this year they can maybe bust through that and kind of maybe get to that Final Four. There's plenty of, but I think they have to be healthy, and I think they have to put it together personally.
Yeah, I think the thing about the Big Ten is that you have so many contenders that even if you see, a couple of them kind of run into that wall that you were talking about and get picked off, you still have a real good shot of one of them breaking through into the Final Four, I think. And those two teams in particular that you talked about in the top five that I mentioned, Indiana and Ohio State, they haven't skipped a beat without those two players, Grace Berger and JC Sheldon. Both have missed a lot of time, and Indiana's kept on humming along. Ohio State's kept on humming along. The Ohio State took it to Oregon the other day, and they lost Madison Green too. Just another injury, and again, just didn't miss a beat. So it's really impressive. We'll see how they look once these teams all start beating each other up. It's always a gauntlet, but been very impressed so far.
So we will get into our topic of the night. My favorite, we're talking about the Big Ten freshmen. It's been, I would say, a pretty productive class overall. A lot of teams, you have some of the teams that don't really have a lot of, freshmen at least making big impacts. But even, two of the top five teams have a freshman starter. You're looking at some of the teams lower down the line. They have some freshman stars coming up, whatnot. So I figured me and you would hash out the freshmen. We're going to talk about some of the top contenders. We are going to give a prediction of who our Big Ten freshman of the year is. And so we'll give kind of the second tier who's there. And then I also want to talk about what each one of the contenders for Big Ten freshman of the year has to do now that we're going into the heart of the Big Ten season, in your opinion, to maybe solidify that, to maybe put themselves in a discussion for freshman of the year, all that. So we will have Calvin start. Who's the freshman you want to start talking about? We can go with one of the top five teams.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna steal yours. I know who yours is. So I'll go with one that I've been really high on since the first game of the season when I watched her, and she impressed me big time. That's Yarden Garzon from Indiana, 6'3" guard, can really, really shoot it. 52% from three, high volume shooter, still knocking down over half her threes. She's a big reason why they haven't is to be without Grace Berger. I think she's stepped up big time. She's taken on a lot more ball handling responsibilities without Grace Berger and using her a lot more, in the pick and roll game. And she stepped up to the plate. She's second in assists. She's 6'3". She's second among this whole group of Big Ten freshmen that we're going to talk about in assists per game. You know who's first. We'll talk about her too. But uh, Yarden Garzon, she's a great passer. She's very skilled, and she's really she's fun to watch. She's got sort of, even for I think a casual fan, kind of an aesthetically pleasing game too.
I was gonna say the first time I watched her, the shot I was worried about, like the slow kind of flat release. It reminded me a little bit of early WNBA Simone Augustus, how flat it kind of was a little bit. It's still in, but a lot of times you have to kind of get a little arc on it. One thing I think that goes underrated that her ability to handle and her willingness to handle, and this is coming from someone who knows her game very well, it has made it so Sarah Scalia doesn't have to handle the ball. Because we saw last year, when she was a Gopher, she was put in a lot of situations where she had to handle a lot, and that kind of put her in. She's a shoot first mentality, and that's perfectly fine with how Indiana's built up. But when she had to handle it, was kind of it threw her off a little bit. Like, okay, am I supposed to look? Am I supposed to shoot? Do I dribble into it? And I think with her being able to handle that and take the ball out of Serah, and Serah can spot up and do her deep threes and stuff like that, it's helped make Serah kind of her game fit in perfectly and keep Indiana humming along. Like you said, without Grace Berger, she picked up the scoring, the handles. She's a big guard who defends. She gets up and down the court pretty well, fits their style. She's been mighty impressive.
Yeah, and your point about handling, I mean, she's getting all this experience, with the ball in her hands and running ball screens and all of this without Grace Berger. And when she comes back, now Indiana just has two players that they can use, very different players, but two players that they can use in the pick and roll game and as handlers and distributors, and just adds a dimension. So I'm very, very high on her. I've been high on her from the start. The one thing that stood out to me when I was looking at the stats, she has the highest on-off rating among the starters on this team, the current healthy starters. Grace Berger is higher, but Yarden Garzon is higher than Mackenzie Holmes, for example, on this team in terms of on-off court, which there's always some noise in those, you never know. Those are grain of salt with any on-off stats, but to me that really does say something, I think, about how important she has been to this team and how this team has been able to not only lose Grace Berger to injury, but when you look at last year, all that they lost from last year's team that was, maybe the best in program history, I think, with Ali Patberg, Nicole Cardano, Hillary, Alexa Gulbe. That was a lot of talent that they lost, but again, they've been able to just keep right on playing at the level that they have been because they brought in Yarden Garzon.
So I'm gonna throw a curveball at Calvin, and the one I want to talk to you about next is Ohio State's power forward Cotie McMahon.
Wow, I did not expect you to go there next. Good for you.
I gotta say, because I was looking at her, she quieted her game versus Ohio State, but one of probably the main reason they were able to beat Southern Florida. The first time I saw her when they did that game against Tennessee, which Tennessee, I think all agree on, maybe slightly overrated when they first came in. I think you might have called that on a podcast somewhere along the line. Them or text. Yeah. See, you got to watch Calvin's stuff, and then you get to give him his props. No, so I would say watching her, she is strong, big, physical, active player. She was the highest rated recruit coming into the Big Ten, according to the ESPN Top 100 her hoop stats, hoop girl. And so she was the highest one. And I feel like she's had some up and downs, but when she's going, she can hit the three. I said finishes well, hits the jump shot. I like her, and I'm gonna butcher this name. I've tried pronouncing it all day. Mishalakova. I probably said it wrong.
Lashikova, I think.
Yeah, her.
Lashikova.
It's a perfect kind of inside out because she can shoot. They both can go out. They both are physical down low. I've really liked her game. About 12 points a game. I said even for defense, I like her willingness to give up the body. She tries to take charges. Again, I said the Tennessee game I go back to. Though Tennessee has some huge players. Granted, if they're good or not, they have huge bodies, and she had no problem taking charges, bodying them up. That was a mighty impressive performance. And then I said the 30 points show out. She's someone that I think has really lived up to her billing.
Yeah, well, and Ohio State really needs that physicality because they basically play four guards, but she can kind of be that pseudo guard big wing tweener, whatever you want to call it. By the way, I feel like we should point out for anyone who doesn't know, Eric's a big Minnesota fan, so that's why I was surprised. It's nothing against McMahon, nothing against McMahon. Why I was surprised that you went there because obviously she deserves to be in the top of this conversation. It's all because I really thought you would be going for someone from Minnesota, but I'm high on McMahon too. I think she's great for this. Ohio State's press has been fantastic, vaunted press, just picking people apart. She's been a big part of that. Great length, get those deflections, those steals, and she's been another one like Yarden Garzon who's kind of stepped up in the absence of a big injury. We talked about Grace Berger and JC Sheldon being out. With JC Sheldon out, McMahon stepped up even more. We've seen, so Sheldon hasn't played in the month of December. I wrote down some more stats for you here, Eric. In November, McMahon was averaging 8 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. In December, 17 points, 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists. She's the leading scorer on the team in December. That not Taylor Mikesell. It's Cotie McMahon who is the leading. Is it Cotie or Cotie?
I want to say Cotie. I think it's
Is
Cotie.
it Cotie? It's Cotie. That's what I thought. It's Cotie McMahon, who is the leading scorer on Ohio State in the month of December. And
Was that Rutgers game? Was that in December or November?
Which one, Rutgers?
Rutgers, because that's when they had two 30-point ones. They had Misha Lakova and Mike Sully, each one for 30. That'd be more impressive if she's scoring them in December. But it might have been November-ish or kind of towards the end of as the month turned.
Yeah, I'm pulling up their schedule here. I can't remember. I want to say it was like the first week of December, but I'll let you know in about 5 seconds here. December 4th. Yeah, that was the first one. First game of December. They've played 6 games in December. They had that one. They've had most of them have been big. 4 of them have been against quality opponents too. It's not like she's doing this against, nobodies. I mean, New Hampshire was in there, but they've also played Michigan State, South Florida, and Oregon just this past week. Some quality competition, and she's really stepped up to the plate. So this is kind of what I just talked about off the top. A lot of people, a lot of these freshmen stepping in and filling roles with some of these injuries, and it's really, really cool to see. I think it just shows kind of the depth of the Big Ten, not only in terms of like teams, but in terms of within teams. A lot of these teams are deep, can really go deep on their bench, and even like just 1 through 5 starting lineups. Some of these names that maybe people didn't know about coming into the season are really having an impact. She's one of them.
So now the next one, is it the Braun Mamba now?
I don't know how we took so long for you to get to her.
Braun Mamba. I'll let you start it out because I know what I got to say.
All right. Yeah. Well, you obviously know her game better than I do as a Minnesota fan. I like her as a scorer. She's a pure scorer. She's one of the only a few freshmen in Division I scoring 19 plus points per game. I don't know if she's still scoring 19 after today's game.
18 even after today's
18.
game.
All right. We're recording this like 20 minutes after Minnesota's game where she let us down a little bit. I wrote down all the stats and stuff before that game, but she's still in the top 5 in freshman scoring in the country. She is fantastic. Forget about today. Fantastic in the open floor. Love watching her in transition, which is a great fit for Minnesota, as you know, who loves to run. She's so dangerous, such a weapon when you get her out in the open court. And it's really cool to see someone be able to step into like an alpha role right away. Obviously, being on Minnesota is different than stepping into an alpha role on a team like Indiana or something. But still, at the same time, like she's obviously ready for this level. And the averaging 2+ steals her game is only allows her to create those opportunities to get out and run where she's so dangerous. So she's another really fun one to watch. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about her, though. You being the Minnesota expert, I'm sure you've seen quite a
Okay.
bit more of her than I have. Give it
I
to me.
I would say, but coming into the season, when I looked at Minnesota, they had like the top 10 recruiting class in the country, all local kids. So I had seen them for 2, 3 years in high school. So I kind of knew them. Braun, to me, I knew was going to, I think, kind of catch people by guard because usually a lot of people look at state tournaments and stuff like that. They don't take into account she played at Wayzata High School, which every year runs into Hopkins High School in the section championship. As good as she has been, and Wayzata has brought out, Jenna Johnson out at Utah, Annika Stewart for Nebraska, and Mara. They've had great, but you're running into Paige Beckers, you're running into a factory of D1 players. And so, I mean, there was a lot of people trying to say, hey, let's just seed them all and let's get them to state just so because Mara was a state tournament. She just never got there. But the highest rated recruit of the 4 they got to come in, she was the most ready, I thought, offensively. And because I remember having a conversation with her dad, and he's like, she just doesn't she don't like to win. She hates losing. Losing almost hurts more than winning feels good for her. And I feel like that was something the Gophers needed. You kind of needed that mentality of someone that's like, we're not losing. And I look at the game, for example, Lehigh and Penn State. Granted, you look at the game winner, that was fantastic. But to get to the game winner, we were, in both of games down 10 in the fourth. This is no disrespect to any players if you're having to listen from last year. Gophers were not winning a game if they were down 10 in the fourth last year. And that was with experience. These freshmen they know there's more time left. They don't have no quit in them. And it almost seems like multiple times when they've hit the 10-point deficit, they go on a run of 6-8. We've seen 12-2. They all of a sudden get rolling. And Mara, for a long time, was averaging the highest one, if not in the conference, if for sure in Minnesota in the fourth quarter. She could get rolling and get them pulling back one by one. She's our best 3-point shooter. She's without a doubt our go-to scorer, and that's kind of a catch-22 because we know she's our go-to scorer. Every opponent knows she's our go-to scorer. Later in the non-conference, I think we started to see people say we're daring anyone other than her to beat us. And so that kind of goes into that. I think she's going to break every single freshman record that Rachel Banham has set. Banham's on the record, Banham's on the staff, and Banham has said I think she's gonna break every single record. So Mara Braun, the Braun Mamba, has not disappointed. Even today, we'll give you the day off. The other 2 freshmen picked it up. And we'll get to those 2 in a little bit, but I just think she has shown scoring wise, ready wise for this game. There's been very few dips and a lot of positives in her game.
Yeah, well, and one of those other 2 freshmen you said, I correct me if I'm wrong, came from Hopkins High School, right? Just another.
Her twinum, they call them twinums. Amaya Battle, they call each other twinum, and I don't get why, but they call each other twinum. So
Exactly, just another one from the D1 factory you're talking about that we'll get to in a bit. But one thing I'm interested to see with Mara Braun as she kind of gets into Big Ten play, especially against a few certain teams, is kind of how she handles pressure, aggressive defenses. I think it's maybe one thing that has kind of thrown her off a little bit so far when she's seen that, and especially I don't know when I have the Ohio State schedule still pulled up here. I'll look. I was gonna say I don't know when they play. It's coming up January 5th. The third next game.
yeah, their next 2 games are Maryland and Ohio State, so that should be fun.
Yeah, second for Minnesota, third for Ohio State. So that one in particular, I'm looking forward to because I think that's one thing that maybe Mara Braun still can improve on right now is the way she handles pressure and traps and aggressive defenses when they really throw the kitchen sink at her, which they will. A lot of teams, especially Ohio State, they will. And I'm interested to see if she can handle that well and she can step up in games like that. Then, I mean, what can she do on offense? She's got the whole package. But that's I think an area right now where off the top you asked kind of what maybe some of these freshmen need to do to take that next step and put themselves in that conversation for whether it's freshman of the year or all freshman team. And for her, you tell me what you think. I think that's maybe that area that you're looking at.
Yeah, I think a game that really highlights what you're saying is the Kentucky game. Kentucky came in with the mentality saying anyone other than Mara Braun was going to beat them. And so every screen they jumped at her. So she had 8 assists and 14 points, but in the fourth, and I think the Gophers with a young team, they are still learning who do you go to, who can you go to, who should you go to in certain situations. Granted, I said the Lehigh game, I don't think we had an option. I think it was throw the ball to her and hope she could make a miracle happen. It was like running Amaya Moore in game 3 in 2015. I'm just gonna say it. Same time too, 1.7, and there was a Whalen somewhere in the building. So we'll give it a credit somewhere. But I do think Kentucky was very pressing, physical with her, and they were of the mentality stating, we're not going to let you beat us. We're not going to let her go wild in the fourth quarter. Her other two, not Virginia, Liberty, a 3-point output, just kind of shots weren't falling. Today, I wouldn't say Eastern Illinois' defense was fantastic. She did get looks that just didn't find the bottom of the net. But Kentucky's the one I go to where I think they handed the blueprint to people and saying, if you're telling, and this is even as a fan, I don't know if the Gophers have enough to win games in the Big Ten if Mara's not giving you 20 plus.
Yeah, no, I agree
Brandon's
with
got to
that.
have that.
And she's gonna have to be able to make plays to where, if you're gonna sell out on her like that, you're gonna have to be able to get the ball to your other players in positions where, I mean, Minnesota is gonna have a 4-on-3 sometimes, and and obviously it's on our teammates to take advantage of that, but she's got to be able to get it to them. And sometimes passing out of those traps or bringing the ball up against 94 feet of pressure. That hasn't always been come as easily to her as maybe the bucket getting has. But
The next two are not seeming fun. As a fan, I'm being honest. The next two are not fun.
next
Maryland,
two games.
Maryland and Ohio State. I mean, I
Really,
take
it's
cover.
really, you're right, tough way to kick off not the Big Ten season, but I guess the main Big Ten season, the new year.
Yeah.
But
I
join
mean,
the
take
club,
cover.
everyone's
And
got something like that in the Big Ten.
the
Top
only
to bottom.
positive after it, and these are no offense to these teams, after that it's at Wisconsin, home Rutgers, home Illinois.
Yeah. Hey, Illinois though, they don't have a freshman we're going to talk about, but Illinois is not going to roll over like they're not in that same category anymore as those. To me, Illinois and Rutgers have basically just changed places in the Big Ten landscape. I think. Look at Illinois went into Indiana and lost by like 4. They had a shot to take the lead with like 20 seconds left. Illinois is legit, so
I'll take my chance in the barn. Barn magic. I'll take the barn magic. Although they got a Dahlia McKenzie who's from hometown here, so. But I said, you got another one on the top tier, or were those the 3 top tier we had?
Well, it depends whether you're talking about what they've done so far or what I think they will do. I got one. Those 3 are my top tier for what we've seen so far. But I got one more for you for what I think we're gonna get.
I think she could be on my list too, and I'll let you go ahead and say it. I think it might be a Nebraska Cornhusker.
It is, yeah. Maggie Mendelson, is she on your list too?
She has 9 points in 2 games. Each game, she was.
Yeah.
You have a big who's she's coming from the volleyball situation. I think we saw in the Kansas that you now have someone you can throw at big. You have someone you can throw at the Sonanos, the McMahons, of that type situation caliber. And she has had 9 points. With what Nebraska has, you don't have to have a post, especially with Markowski. You don't have to have her scoring 15, 20. She can. So I'll let you go. It was your player.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you had her on the list too. Yeah, like you said, she's played 2 games now since coming off volleyball season. Number 2 volleyball recruit in the country, and Nebraska's always loaded on volleyball. I think their season ended a little bit earlier than she would have liked, but still made a deep run as always. Just kind of getting her feet under her basketball wise, I think. But we saw her play 17, 18 minutes yesterday in that triple overtime game. She played, by the way, this was interesting to me. She played 8 minutes alongside Alexis Markowski. Both in the front court, which I thought was interesting. But Markowski can step out and shoot it, so that can work. That can work. But I was a little bit surprised to see it. I do think, yeah, like you said, the rebounding and the shot blocking, and just kind of the interior defense. That's what do you expect from a front row volleyball player? She fits the bill.
And it's not just shot blocking. She's keeping it in bounds. Like she's sending it the
Yeah.
other way instead of out. She's sending it the other way where you can get Jazz Shelley, Markowski, Stamheide running.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's effective shot blocking. It's not just shot blocking for show. She had 2 of those last night, like you said, 9-9-2. And this is a team I talked about at the top, like with all the injuries, can't catch a break. I think yesterday if I'm correct, was the first game they've had all season with their full roster because Mendelson was finally back. And then they got Izzy Bourne back from injury yesterday. And they had, Sam Hybe's missed a lot of time. They had her available yesterday. And then Allison Widener gets hurt in the middle of the game. That right when they fully get healthy and active in Mendelson's case, they lose another one. So I feel very bad for them. It's a tough blow. But having her back is big because they've been another team that's been able to sustain some of those injuries because of their depth. And now they're just even deeper, especially in the front court. When you talk about her and Markowski in particular, like that's as good of a 1-2 punch on the front court, I think, in the Big Ten. And so even, whoever they have out there, I don't know the deal. I haven't heard yet with Allison Widener. I love to see Izzy Bourne back on the court last night, but whoever they have out there, this is a dangerous team in the Big Ten. We've seen this; they're getting votes. I think they should be ranked again next week. We'll see, and they're only going to keep getting better as Mendelson gets back into basketball mode, and really gives them just kind of a different, not only depth, but like a different look that they just don't have without her.
She kind of has the Suarez effect that Iowa State's kind of
I
finding
was,
out.
yeah,
I think kind of because you have the Ashley Jones in Markowski, different body types, a little bit different game, but not super different. And then you have the Suarez effect, and I think that's where we kind of see Markowski can, maybe have minutes of not getting banged on down low with the Sinanos and the Holmes, and can step out, and that will be maybe save her for a longer run.
Yeah, no, I think Mendelson's presence, whether she's scoring herself or not, is going to be really big offensively because, like you said, it'll her energy on defense will help some of those other players, maybe Markowski in particular, kind of save a little bit for the offensive end. And on the other hand, too, I think in the post, from the little bit I've seen, I didn't really see her in high. I know you're a high school expert, maybe you know what she was like in high school. From the little bit I've seen, I think she can be an effective enough post scorer to whether she's actually putting up any sort of big scoring numbers or not, just to kind of draw some attention down there and free up whether it's Jazz Shelley or Sam Hybe or whoever it is from the perimeter to get some looks. So again, just whole new dimension, both sides of the ball, big impact, and I am pumped to see where this team goes. This is one of those teams, I think, with some of the revolving doors they've had on their roster that is whatever seed they get because they've taken some lumps resume wise with some of these players that they haven't had, Drake, Creighton, whoever, that whatever seed they get is probably not going to be high enough. And I don't know, let's say they get like a 7 seed. Do you really want to be the 2 seed playing them in the second round? Because I don't.
Not if you're Ohio State, or then you're seen them for a third time. Ohio State or Indiana, if you've seen them for a third time.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think they can match up like that second round conference opponents, but anyone in that tier.
Oh, maybe if we got 8 of them in there, they got to shove them somewhere.
Yeah, I think they'd probably set them up to match up in the Sweet 16 in that case. But you might have to ask Charlie Cream. I don't quite know all the bracket rules. I do know though that anyone in that tier, of Ohio State and Indiana, anyone else in that tier too, facing Nebraska in the second round would not. If Nebraska has all their pieces, then it's not something you want to see.
So
She's a big reason why. I know we're focusing on freshmen. I got off on a little tangent about the team, but yeah, no, Mendelson is going to just do a lot of things for this team and open up a lot of different options.
I agree with what you say about high school because she was actually a Gopher recruit. We were one of her Final Four because of, I think, mostly volleyball, because Gopher volleyball is they're up there. I won't say they're up there with like Wisconsin and Nebraska, but hey, we're up there. And then they're
top 10 team though, right? Big Ten is loaded in volleyball. It's ridiculous.
My theory is, if I want to go on a little tangent, I think the Big Ten is too loaded for volleyball. I think they beat up on each other too much, and by the time they get to the tournament, they're all gassed. Because as you saw this year, not a lot of them had much left by the time the tournament came around.
Yeah, well, Wisconsin did get a national championship. Was it the year before that or 2 years
Last
ago?
year in Minnesota, so that was a real hurt.
Yeah, but you're right. It's the toughest schedule of anyone has to play in any volleyball conference for sure.
Basketball's trying to get up there, but we talked about the 4, so we'll say those are the 4 probably top tier freshmen coming in. or at least
Okay.
right now through like the non-conference, a few conference games and whatnot.
I
Now we'll
have
talk
I
about that.
have those as kind of yep. I have a gap between 4 and 5, but obviously, if you're talking about awards, you can't put Mendelson in there yet. She hasn't done anything yet. So
Well, so we'll go there before we go to the second tier. So we're doing predictions. If the season ended today, we've all the games that have played, all the stats that have played. If you had to hand out the award, and it's a two-part question, who is right now is your Big Ten Freshman of the Year, and who's their biggest challenger?
all right. So you want to know who I would vote for or who I think is going to win it? It's not the same answer.
If you're getting the vote, we'll have you give your vote.
Right. All right. Because I don't think voters are going to vote the way I would, which is often true. But I would vote for Yarden Garzon. I think Mara has been the best scorer, no question. I think Yarden's been the best all-around player, just multi-dimensional talent, and maybe had the biggest impact for the best team in the Big Ten. Obviously, Ohio State would have an argument maybe about best team, but I think Garzon's had a bigger impact than Cotie McMahon, as good as McMahon's been. So I would go with Yarden Garzon. And to answer your question about biggest challenger, it would be Mara Braun. I think Mara Braun is the other one. To me, those two it's close to neck and neck. I think it's a good race. I would give Garzon the edge. I'm guessing you're going to disagree with me. I'll let you speak for yourself. But I think Mara Braun certainly would have a case.
I'll start with the best challenger, in my opinion. I think is going to be McMahon simply,
Okay.
but as we talked about what they need to do better for a power forward, she averages under 4 rebounds a game. I think she should be able to get with her athleticism, her strength, her activity. I was a little surprised when I saw the stats that that's how low she is on the rebounds. I would expect her to kind of be a little bit higher up, but I think she can get up there. I think especially if you have JC Sheldon shooting, Taylor Mikesell shooting, they're running and stuff. I think she could kind of dominate the rebounding and whatnot. Maybe it's a little bit, I'm not even going to try it again. Misha Lakova, tried it. I said it wrong, I think, all 3 times. If she's in there, I think,
Kalashnikova?
yeah. And I think the paint might be a little compact, but she could run down the other ones, the high rebound, the long 3 rebounds. There's where kind of say, but I think she's the best challenger. Now, who I'm voting for, the Braun Mamba, the shot maker,
I'm shocked.
the buzzer beater. And it's not, I mean, the buzzer beater, that was fantastic. That felt amazing on so many personal levels because Lehigh had 6 Minnesota kids on the roster. And then it was a Minnesota kid saying, no, you ain't coming to our house. So, and the other thing I would say is when I look at like the Penn State game, she went 11 for 11 on free throws, including 3 for 3 under 20 seconds to go down 3, having to hit all 3. I think, and then late in the double overtime, she does the and one. I think the reason is, and this is how I describe it, Gopher fans, don't skewer me. If you had to describe Mara along with the other 2 that we'll discuss here soon, that freshman class, those 3 specifically, they are a lifeboat searching the Titanic looking for lives on this program.
Okay.
And they are doing a great job being a lifeboat. They all 3 are in top 10, or they all 3 they're the leading for the team of minutes played. They've all kind of have their own niche. They all should have been starters from the beginning. Don't get me started on that with Maya Battle, but she should have been a starter. She is a starter now. They're starting. I just think Mara, and it's the scoring, it's the swagger, she's willing to take the big shot. I also think the defense, she's averaging 2 steals a game. She's very long and does a really good job of reading in the passing lanes. I just think it's hers to lose. And so the Braun Mamba, I think, is going to be the 6th Gopher to win Freshman of the Year in the Big Ten.
I love that you just knew that off the top of your head. Go for history almanac right here. This is why I think voters would agree with you, is because to just I don't know how bluntly to put this, but and this I don't want to put this in a way that would disrespect Mara Braun because she's fantastic. I think what a lot of voters do in any conference with any award, whatever it is, they don't watch the games. They go sort by whatever stat. If it's defensive player of the year, they sort by steals. If it's player of the year, they sort by points. Whatever it is. That's who they vote for, right? And Mara Braun is averaging more points per game than any freshman in the Big Ten, and it's not close. Whoever's second, I don't even remember who's second, is not close.
Smikle at 15.
All right, yeah. So it's 4, now 3 points after today. Still healthy cushion. I don't know if anyone else is above 12 or 13.
No,
And
next two are the 12s, the two that we
all
talked
right, you got everything on the ball handy. I love it. You are prepared for this. Um, and I think that's what voters are going to do. They're going to sort by points per game. Nothing else matters. Mara Braun is the player of the year. And not that she doesn't do anything else and she doesn't deserve to be in that conversation, but when I look at the way that Yarden Garzon handles the ball, passes the ball, defends, she's got some work to do in that area, but all of the things that she brings to the table on, obviously, no shade, Eric, a much better team than Minnesota
For now, yeah.
right now. To me, she's just the all-around better player. But I don't think it's like a big enough gap to where I would really I don't think it would be necessarily like an injustice if Mara Braun won if the vote happened today. But there's a lot of basketball left to be played in how these freshmen play against Big Ten competition, because some of them have played really high level competition already. Some of them haven't played anybody already. The from 1 to 14 in the Big Ten, the schedules are vastly different with these 14 teams. And so some of them are going to be ready, some of them aren't for what they're about to see in January. But we're going to learn a lot. And if we did this podcast again 2 months from now, we might be having a totally different conversation.
We just might. If Calvin don't block me after this, yeah, just might, because I hit him up every couple months for a podcast. So and then we'll go to that. So we've talked about them. We're gonna mark it down. You have Garzon, I have Braun. You have Braun as the best challenger. I have McMahon. I will say this, and it's completely, this is my one bias moment coming out. Indiana's hard for me to cheer for, and it's not nothing to do with her. The Scalia situation, it's a little bit like I feel like a jilted ex, and I'm like just a fan. So I'm like, it's hard to want them to do really well because I'm like, but at the same time, I think both sides, they're happy with where their programs are going. I think Indiana's happy with where they are. Gophers are happy with what the future looks like if you're keeping a core together. I would say that.
Yeah. No, one thing I love about you, Eric, you and me are both like, we're biased and we don't care. Like, there's all this like weird like journalism, writers, podcasters, like supposed to be unbiased, like
Rebecca Lobo.
we're all biased. Let's just own it. I go hard for Illinois State, as you know. You go hard for Minnesota. Let's just all own our bias because like it's in there whether you admit it or not. So I respect that about you. Flaunt your bias. I don't mind that one bit.
On that level, on that next thing, we're going to talk about, and I hate saying second tier because both of them have my heart just as much as Mara does as freshmen. I'm here to get your take. I wanted you to talk about Mara's twinum, Amaya battle, and Mallory hired the three freshmen like that. I wish we could almost give them the award as a team because I don't think there's a Big Ten team that has a trio of freshmen that are as effective as Gophers. But I'm curious to think what you, now that you've seen them, you've done a little research on them. What's your thoughts on Battle and, I would say Battle and Braun, Battle and Hire?
Yeah, I mean, I think all three of those players with those two in Braun are great complementary players for each other. I think they did a really good job in terms of, Lindsay Whalen in terms of that recruiting class, not only recruiting talent, but recruiting complementary talent. Mallory Hire I've been so impressed with her efficiency as a freshman. A lot of freshmen come in and either jack shots or take bad shots or turn it over or whatever. And Mallory Hire has just been a really efficient player in all facets. Obviously, that's a little bit easier to do when you're lower volume. If she had Mara Braun type of load on her shoulders, maybe she wouldn't be shooting quite as well, and she'd obviously be turning it over more. But at the same time, it's still been impressive for a freshman, and I think she's a great. I talked about complimentary pieces. I think she's just a great player to play alongside someone who is an alpha, who is a go-to scorer like Braun. And she's never going to be, Mallory Hire would never be that, but being like a Robin to that is a great fit for her. She's versatile. She can do so many different things. Just today, as ugly as that game was, I thought she had some great cuts. I love watching her cut and get open for those other two players to find her. She's active on the O board. She can spot up and hit the three. We've even seen her, post up some smaller defenders every now and then. There's a lot of different ways that she can get it done, and that's really fun. And then in terms of Amaya Battle, fantastic passer. Love to watch her pass. I think that's both her strength and her weakness, in the sense that sometimes you watch her and she forces a pass that would have been really cool, but it wasn't there. And she turns it over, and you think, it was there, a layup. If you just would have taken it yourself, you would have had it. But you tried to fit in this cool pass, and it didn't work. But sometimes she does fit it in, and it is cool. And I think we see both the good and the bad out of her passing, but it's fun to watch either way. She's the best passing freshman in the Big Ten. I think the one passer that's better than Yarden Garzon, freshman in the Big Ten, is Amaya Battle. I'd like to see her be like a little bit more patient, maybe sometimes. She's so good and she's so fast, and sometimes she just plays too fast, which plays into what I talked about. But the passes that she makes when she's on are passes like nobody else on the court is making. That certainly no one on the Gophers, just fitting in these spaces and outlet pass. She's always looking up, has her head up on transition. When they get a rebound, when she gets a rebound, when she gets the outlet, always looking to hit ahead, which I love, because passing ahead is so much more effective than dribbling ahead when you're in transition, and she's always looking to do that. So it's a fun trio. You're right. I think it's a cool trio to watch, and we'll see where they take Minnesota in the next few years.
Going at that, the one game I go to, and I know it's unfair because they won the game, the Penn State game. Gophers had 3 returners this year, and Rose Misha, Katie Baravich, and Maggie Sonano, the little Sonano, which, by the way, bragging point, our Sonano out-rebounded the big Sonano when they played each other. Just saying. We lost the game, but our Sonano out-rebounded their Sonano. I'll take it.
You always got to find something.
And so in that game, the 2 other starters, Katie is a redshirt freshman, but she played 12 games during the COVID year, so she knows college basketball with a redshirt last year. Rose played last year, had some great moments. Both of them had fouled out in the Penn State game. So you are literally relying on 3 freshmen playing in their very first Big Ten game in that Penn State one. And I look at, to give you an example of Amaya's passes, I even showed multiple people. She was doing half-court passes on the money right to Mallory going up for a layup. One-handed. It was a one-handed fling from half court, and it was on the money. And that was and so Mal, I was in high school coming out, she was a tank. Block to block, there was no one in Minnesota basketball better than going when she would just go, and she would just beat everyone down the court. And when she has Amaya and Mara looking for her, that's when Mal, I think, is at her strongest, when she can beat everyone down the court. And in that game, she started doing that. And then she started, doing you saw, like you said, the post move. She got the huge and one when they were down 80 or 90 to 87, and got the and one and scored over a senior. And so those 2 to me, and I think Mal today had probably, I think she had to put ahead 3 that kept him ahead. The Kentucky, kind of like I said, the Robin in the Kentucky game, going back to there when they're stopping Mara in the last 2 minutes from down 8, she hit 2 back-to-back threes to pull them within 2. And because they doubled Mara, and she stepped up, and Amaya to me, I want that balance of looking to score and looking to pass, because when you played at the machine that is Hopkins, she didn't have to score more than 5 to 10 points a game. You had Maya Najee, McDonald's All-American, Nunu Aguera, Taylor Woodson, who were all going to Stanford, Michigan, she was just all had to pass, and she just had to keep them kind of under control. Where now you're expected for her to give you rebound, and she's our second best rebounder on the team, which at the point guard position. I think, though, I said those 3 to me, having the most excited I've been about the Gophers probably since I watched them. They're, in my opinion, the best freshman class since Rachel Banham came on in 2011, because they work well, like you said, they work well together. If Mallory and I want to say Mara and Amaya, try saying that fast. If Mal and Amaya could have had a little more consistency early in the games, I think they kind of both were kind of like a little bit of a slow burn, but have came on. Also, to kind of add a little extra point, another reason I would have Mara as my freshman of the year, when you look at the North Dakota State game, that's probably a win if she's simply on the court. They were right there, but you took out 27 points a game in the third game, and I honestly watching it as a fan, we constantly were looking for. It's almost like we were looking for her out there as we passed around to 5 people, and so that's maybe what would we be like without her. But anywho, going back to the main two that we were talking to, I think Mal is that steady Eddie, that quiet assassin, that quiet leader. Like you said, she's not going to be the first name you think of, but I think at the end of the box score, you're going to look and be like, we won because she did this, this, and that.
Yeah, and this and that is like 10 different things. She made 10 different plays, and none of them, it wasn't like she, hit 10 shots or like made 10 cuts. It was like each of those 10 plays were wildly different, and they were all, you know, subtle or maybe decent. None of them were Sports Center type of plays, but that winning plays, like you said. Um, you brought up a good point though. I didn't even think about that. This is why I like talking to you about Hopkins, about Amaya Battle playing with all that talent at Hopkins and being used to. Maybe this is why she's used to playing on a team where she doesn't have to go get her own. She's got so many people to do that. She's always looking to pass, and that's always there. But now on this team, there's times when she really does. They're gonna try to play her for the pass. These defenses are, and basically force her to turn her into a scorer, and she's gonna have to do that at some point. And it's just a different roster construction than I'm sure what was at Hopkins with all that talent. So I didn't even think about that, her high school experience kind of shaping her in that way. But that's a great point that you bring up. I think she'll get there though. I think she's dripping with potential.
I would say this of the three, she's probably the highest basketball IQ, and that's nothing against Mal and Mara. They are extremely high as well. But one example is the Lehigh game, and I even told Coach about this afterwards. I said Lehigh's top player had 4 fouls with about 4 or 5 minutes left to go. The only person that on the floor seemed to understand that she had 4 fouls was Amaya Battle, because every time they switched the screen, she attacked her for a layup, and that helped bring it back. And I was like, Amaya understood she can't stop you, she can't block you, she can't do it. Basically, she has to let you go. And I'm like, that just spoke to her high as a freshman in her second game in an intense game that had both sides going nuts, including me in the stands. I mean, she knew that this player had 4 fouls, and I'm like, that's not something a lot of freshmen understand. The attack off the bounce because they have 4. There's nothing they can do, and if they bring extra, someone's open.
Yeah, I mean, there's even seniors who aren't always aware of that sometimes. That's another good point. The high level awareness, it's exactly what you want out of your point guard. And it's it's something that just my battle aside, just generally as a basketball fan and basketball watcher for me, awareness and IQ is like my favorite part of the game because it's an equalizer. It's it's something that anyone can do. It doesn't matter how tall you are, how quick you are, how strong, how fast. Not everyone can be, like a freak athlete or like a Caitlin Clark level shooter, but everyone can make smart decisions if you just think about it, and study the game. And not everyone does, but everyone can. Everyone has that ability. And so when you see players like her who use that, that just gives you an edge over teams and players who maybe have more raw talent than you do. I love that part of the game.
So, so now the next goal is to get Calvin to come up to Minnesota to see them all three in person. So we can kind of maybe the Braun Mamba can change his mind in person. We can see about that. Well, we've
But we're
given.
gonna watch when they play each other. We'll have to see when Minnesota when do Minnesota and Indiana play each other?
I want to say it's in February. Indiana. It's only one time, and Indiana comes up to the barn.
Okay, that'll be a fun one.
I don't know who will be fun for, but it might be fun.
Well,
Maybe we'll pull up an upset.
well,
We'll want to hand Scally an old hometown loss.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the score will be fun for you guys or not, but
Penn
um,
Home's gonna
from
eat.
a from the perspective of watching two high-level freshmen go at it. And I'm sure, they'll be matched up on each other at some point with switches or whatever else, in transition the way Minnesota runs, even if it's not the primary matchup, which I don't think it will be. But it'll just be we'll settle this on the court that day. That's
Braun Mamba going for 40. So we've given Minnesota their love, which, by the way, shout out, they won today. I don't know if we talked about that enough. So who are some other, not at the top level, who are some other freshmen that kind of have caught your attention or on your list?
Yeah, well, I got 4 more written down here. I think we have that top tier that we talked about of 4, and then the other 2 Minnesota ones we talked about, and then there's 4 more. I think there's 10. I told you this before we started recording, that are really like there's another gap from 10 to 11. I think 10 have separated themselves. And the other 4, I don't know where you want to start. Wisconsin's got a pair of them, Maty, Wilke, and Serah Williams.
That's the 2 that I got for them.
That's the 2 that you got. Yep, you might have these other 2 probably as well then. Kaylene, Smikle, and Shay, Ciezki. Those are the other 2 I have.
The only other one I had added besides those 4, and it was scoring wise, no, I've just liked some of her minutes, has been Hannah Stuelke for Iowa.
Okay.
I think she kind of comes in and gives good effort. I mean, she hasn't exploded, and I didn't think any of the Iowa freshmen would, with bringing all 5 starters back. You're kind of running with whatever they call them, the law firm or whatever they're called, of Clark and Sonano. Which, by the way, as like a family of women's basketball people, can we learn how to say Sonano correct? Just out of curiosity. And anywho, and so I think Stuelke come in and provided nice kind of post depth. She can step out. She had a decent rebounder. So that was the only one I had, is kind of just like a star of like to give her a shout out.
Yeah, no, the pronunciation thing is a problem in women's basketball. It's not just Sonano. People don't know how to pronounce. Which, to be fair, like earlier, I thought it was Cotie McMahon. I thought you said Cotie, but whatever. I shouldn't be throwing stones. But real quick, you got me on this, so on my soapbox here. When you're like a professional broadcaster, like, I don't know, I should know how to pronounce these names, but if I'm getting paid a lot of money to broadcast on national TV, I should definitely know how to pronounce these names. That's what bothers me the most when you watch these like high level, like that's you don't have to be a good broadcaster to do that. You just have to prepare. Anyway, soapbox over. Let's go back to these freshmen. I just wanted to drop that in there because it was bothering me. You're right though. Iowa, they didn't just bring back 5 starters from last year, from 2 years ago too. 3 straight years with the same 5 starters. So much experience, and then of course they brought in Molly Davis as well. So she's just a player who's kind of like not obviously buried on the depth chart, but like really they don't need her per se. And it'll be great to see what she does. If we have this conversation a year from now, what she's doing for Iowa next year, the year after. But to me right now, where she's at, nothing necessarily even to do with talent, but just purely what she's doing on the court right now and how she's relied upon in her usage is 11th maybe, but not in the same class with these other 10 that we're talking about. I like that you brought her up though. She deserves a shout out. I like what these Wisconsin players are doing. In particular, Maty Wilke. I think she's a really exciting player, and I'm not sure exactly what this means. She redshirted last year, and she won, according to her bio, the National Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association. Not an award. She was a National Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association All-American, which I guess just means she hit the weight room really hard during her redshirt year. I don't know. I actually haven't heard of that, but you can see it. It makes sense.
Award or not Iowa, Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was. Who knows? She was an All-American at something during her redshirt year when she didn't play, whatever that means. But I brought that up not just as a random like tidbit, but as it's relevant because I think you can see it, whether that's like a real thing or not. You can see the strength and conditioning. To me, that's like a big part of her game. First off, she plays tons of minutes, and she's able to play tons of minutes because she's in such good shape. She's played 36 plus minutes in most of their games this year when it's not a blowout. I think 7 games she's hit that mark already. Second, she's just strong, and it allows her to finish at the rim really well whether she's cutting or whether she's driving. Shoots 75% at the rim as a guard, as a 5'10" guard. Very impressive. And she's just it's the strength and conditioning.
All
She
American.
stays out. That's something that usually you see freshmen come in, and I guess she's a pseudo freshman because she redshirted and apparently spent that whole year doing nothing but lifting weights or whatever. But it's still when you see that's the type of thing you usually see out of juniors and seniors, and you see a lot of freshmen come in at maybe a little bit wiry or not ready to necessarily handle the physicality of, especially at this level, like the Big Ten. And I think you could maybe talk about a couple others on this list in that regard, maybe like a Shay Ciezki. She's 5'7", so that doesn't really help her. But I've been very impressed with Maty Wilke's ability just to kind of be ready for the physical level of play in the Big Ten right now.
Fun fact of Maddie Wilke, she played at North Tartan and her backcourt running mate was Mara Braun.
Is that right?
At AAU,
I
it was
always count
Mara
on
Braun
you
and
for the high school nuggets.
Maddie Wilke and Mara Braun, AAU at North Tartan. That was the backcourt. So I think they had some success winning some state championships and going pretty far in Nike EYBL tournaments and whatnot. So
I would imagine.
I said that's why I had her on there. She's coming off an ACL. We've all watched women's basketball, I think, enough to know nothing's guaranteed when you come back from a knee injury. I think she put in the work. Fantastic shooter. My knock would be more on, and this is, I mean, once again, we all know as a Minnesota fan, Wisconsin and me maybe don't shake hands all the time on everything. Why don't you run more plays for her? I feel like they kind of leave her high and dry too much, where they just kind of like make her, like they say, go create what you want or find a way to like. So my thing is like run a play for her. Let's run some stagger screens to get her open, run the elevator pick to kind of have her come off and hit some threes. I feel like they kind of have her as an afterthought, and she's still putting up around 12 points a game as an afterthought from her own staff. So that's my only thing I would say is get more plays for her. She clearly shown she can score. She can handle the load. I'd like to see her get more plays.
No, I agree. I mean, she can hit the three. She's the most efficient cutter in the country, according to Synergy, at least 20 possessions. Her on cut, she's more points per possession higher than anyone in the country. She can be maybe a little bit foul prone on defense, which kind of just plays into that, physicality we talked about too. But I think part of that, she's had a lot of games with 4 or 5 fouls. Part of that though is also just like I said, playing so many minutes. She's always on the court. But you're right. I mean, a team like Wisconsin, when you have someone like that, should really be utilizing them. So we'll see how that goes into Big Ten play.
And then they got Williams, the post, kind of another situation where she's been up and down. And now, not to sound, I guess, almost might sound like a hypocrite. I think they force it to her too often. I think they have where when they get into a game where they really want to Tota Williams, I mean, especially whatever Thanksgiving tournament they were at, they had probably 10 turnovers in the game simply just trying to get her the ball because they didn't have anyone that could direct line it in. They didn't try to pass around or anything. And so I feel bad for her because when she's posting up strong, she posts, reposts, she'll, kind of try and come up set a screen, and they're just forcing bad passes at her and they're telegraphing them. I'm just confused. Like, and she's still putting up also around 12 points a game. They're probably the two leading scorers for Wisconsin. So I guess find a happy medium, try and get Maddie more shots and stop forcing shots to Williams.
Yeah, I in general, as sort of an analytics guy, am more often than not in favor of getting perimeter players more shots when efficient perimeter players, especially when you have trouble getting into the post. And there's obviously exceptions to that. I think at this level, it's maybe a little bit different in the WNBA. I think at this level, the post is still a big part of the game. When you have someone who's automatic like Sonano or Mackenzie Holmes, a little bit different maybe. But you're right. I mean, number one, Serah Williams can score in the post. When she gets it, when they get it to her, it's very efficient. She's also just like defender, on ball screens, rebounder. She's so good in those regards. They don't necessarily need her to be like a centerpiece of the offense. I don't know. if that's the right word, but
I don't know who is the centerpiece for Wisconsin.
they don't have a centerpiece. That's why I don't know if that's the right word. But I mean, if they did have one, it probably should be Wilke, right? Um,
One would think, but I'm not on a Badgers coaching staff, so one would assume.
yeah. Well, there. I don't know what to tell you.
Shout out to you two. Keep doing what you're doing despite your coaches struggle to get you the ball or not get you the ball or put you in a good position. I'm curious about your next one because I think let's go to it's Smikle or Smikle. Kaylene Smikle.
Michael, I think. Is Kaylene Smikle. Is that right?
Yep. So she's one of two freshmen on the team, but it's also a team that I mean literally has 8 players. They don't have walk-on, they're running with 8. So they're an injury bug away from having to go with 4 players.
Yeah, which is tough. It's not this isn't C. Vivian Stringer's Rutgers.
But she is 15th in the conference in scoring currently, and weirdly enough, she's only started 1 game.
Which was their last game. They just put her into the starting lineup a few days ago, whenever their most recent game was.
And so I always thought it interesting that she's 15th in the conference in scoring from the bench mostly.
Yeah, leading the team in scoring by quite a bit. Second in minutes, even before they put her in the starting lineup. She was second on the team in minutes. She was basically a starter. She just didn't start the game. I'm not really sure what the deal is with that either, to be honest. But
The Amaya battle syndrome.
yeah, who knows? Spark off the bench, whatever people say. I don't know. She's not the only one in the country who does something like that. But she, to me, is, I don't know if this is true in every respect, but I will say like the anti-Mallory hire, but like not necessarily in a bad way for either one, just like very different in the sense that like Mallory hire like comes in, does all these little things. She cuts, she gets open, she finishes, she's efficient. And Kaylene Smikle comes in, dominates the ball, dominates the volume because she has to. She wouldn't have had to on like 5 years ago Rutgers team or whatever. Right. Some of those Rutgers teams for decades they were a power, but on this Rutgers team she has to be the it. And she comes in and she's not shooting very efficiently, and you can't necessarily fault her. She on the other end, she can guard, a lot of different positions. So she does have maybe the same versatility in some respects as Mallory Hire, but she's in terms of just like usage and how much they're relying on her, and it's one of those things where I think if Rutgers was really going to be in the conversation at the top of the Big Ten, she would need a little bit more help. But I do like what I've seen from her in, scoring in the pick and roll. I think she could maybe pass a little bit better out of it. There's another one where I think contrast her to Amaya Battle. I think sometimes she has the opposite problem where she's shot hunting because she has to on this team. And sometimes she's looking for her own shot so much that maybe she misses the open pass. But that's another thing that'll come. All of these things that we talk about, like they're freshmen, they got so much time. So
what I'm hearing from Calvin is he's telling everyone early January on Big Ten Network when Rutgers comes to the barn, Mallory Hire versus Kaylene Smikle. Watch the matchup. Let's see how they do one-on-one. Let's see who gets the better of that matchup.
Yeah, well, you know what? The Big Ten all-freshman team, there's 5 of them, right? Or is it one of those weird conferences that does like some random number?
No, to be honest, the Big Ten, they do these large first and second teams, and then freshman team stays at 5.
Okay, that's what I thought. I can never remember though, because some conferences do like things that don't make sense. And
you've also given me an idea of what to do after we get to talking about Shay from Penn State.
There you go. Well, I was going to get to that because that battle that you mentioned, no pun intended, could be for like the 5th spot, I think. I don't know. Smikle will probably be on there again because points per game. Everyone loves points per game. She's second in the Big Ten in freshman points per game. But if you ask me, the four that we talked about before already with Braun, Mendelson, McMahon, and Garzon, those four, like right now, would not right now. If you made the team right now, Mendelson wouldn't be on it. But if
That's my question is, what do you think voters will it hurt her that she missed a large part of the non-conference due to volleyball? Will they hold that against her and say, well, you really kind of came in late type situation? Or will they look at her holistically and say this is what she did, in the time that she played in the games that she played and not hold the games that she missed against her?
If it's borderline, they might hold it against her. Yeah, if she's splitting hairs with someone else, but I don't think she will be. In my opinion, I think she's going to separate herself in that group with the other three that we talked about, and those four, 2-3 months from now, we're going to look and say those are locks for all freshman team, and then we're going to be looking at who's number 5. And it's going to be a wide open race for number 5, and part of that race is going to be that matchup that you just talked about. Really, 3 players in that game that are going to have a significant say with Battle Hire and Smikle. And if I were a voter, I'd be watching that game closely, trying to figure out which one of these 3 am I giving spot number 5 to, because it's so wide open right now, and I really have no idea.
Or people can just come to the barn. It's friendly here. If it's not like now, what it's like outside, the barn is fun. We've had some fun games, Lehigh and Penn State. Those are pretty fun to be there live for. And so speaking of the Penn State game, she hit a game winner to send us to 2 overtimes, and I did not think I was going to get out of that arena till midnight that night. What were we saying about? You said 5'7", but fiery, good shooter, a nice combination with Marissa in the back court. I can't think of her last name right now.
Marisa.
Yeah, she killed us for 34. I should have remembered that name.
Yeah, she kills everybody. It's interesting. They're both it's a small backcourt, which is both good and bad. It's great offensively. They do a lot of damage in terms of just the ball handling and ball screens and shooting. Defensively, rebounding, sometimes they run into problems with having 2 different players. I don't know if Marisa is any taller. Is she taller? Maybe 5'8" or 5'9".
I think she's 5'9" because she looked like she was right up there next to Battle eye to eye, and I think Battle 5'11" listed.
She might be taller than she looks because she's also just like slight of frame. But it's a fun backcourt, and Ciezki could be that player who she's not gonna be like, it's not fair to say like, oh, she's gonna be McKenna Marisa, because like, who is? There's like, outside of like Caitlin Clark, like McKenna Marisa is one of the most underrated offensive players in the country, in my opinion. I think I've said that before other places, but Shay Ciezki is gonna be, when Marisa leaves, like she's already an important offensive weapon for them, and she's gonna just take a whole nother leap next year as a sophomore, just in terms of the load that she's carrying and how much she's relied upon, what she's asked to do. She's already running a lot of ball screens, what she's asked to do offensively for this team. So I think it's a really good sign for them that she's already having this level of success, even when she's not that number 1 yet, and she's a freshman, because she's shooting. I should have written this down. Maybe you know everything off the top of your head. 38% from 3 or something like that, upper 30s, which is
38.3.
38.3. There you go. You got the whole stats there, just like on a...
I took notes here. Come on now, I took notes for this.
I wrote some stuff down, but I didn't write down enough stats. I don't think I need to have the stats in front of me. But
I had to make sure that I had to not only talk about 3 freshmen. So
yeah, there you go. I feel you. No, 38% though, that's good for anyone, but as a freshman, again, talk about sometimes freshmen come in, and I think shooting is one of the biggest areas where sometimes you see in college basketball, freshman to sophomore to junior, just improve efficiency. Not necessarily, sometimes they get better at shooting too, but what they really get better at, I think, is shot selection, which improves their efficiency and their percentages. But she's already right there, I think. It definitely has a spot up shooter, but even, you see when they go under screens on her, she's not afraid to pull up off the dribble. So
at the buzzer beater to send it to double overtime.
Exactly. So I think Penn State's got something good.
I feel like she embodies her head coach. That and this means this in the nicest way possible. They have that dog in them. Like she is going to get on. I mean, she was a pest when the game I saw the most up close obviously was the Gopher game. She was an absolute pest, and you at times would see she would switch on to Battle if Battle was getting hot. When Braun was, she kind of was, and it was having them upend them and not let them get their kind of swing through kind of or dribble. And so I liked that kind of feist from her. And I said, I think Penn State is one of those teams that if they can find it to get it to click, I think what they're missing is a 4 or 5 consistency. Because we've seen the different ones. We've seen maybe not the smartest basketball plays come out of their 4 or 5 that have cost them games. And so I think if you can get like a consistent 5 led by McKenna Marisa and Shay, I think you would have something there. And I think she would be and I also think it helps McKenna move off the ball more, where she's kind of can run off those, like we talked about with Maty Wilke, which I wish they would do, running off screens, coming off plays, flare screens, everything of that. And then she can find her. And so I wish that part I'm a fan of.
That's a great point about Marisa being able to play off ball, because that just lightens the load up on her a little bit in terms of ball handling, but it also gives you more creative ways to get her open, which is a big deal. So I agree. Penn State has taken a big step forward this year. They're still definitely not one of those, like, they're not going to compete at the top of the Big Ten or anything. But look at where they were last year, a year ago now, and where they are now. Is a step in the right direction, and we'll see if they take a step back or not when they lose Marisa. But if they don't, I mean, Shay would be a big reason why.
So we've highlighted 10. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions here now. I'm going to start with the other 2 before we go to the last one. So we talked about a big 4. Who would you say had the best chances where they could leap up into that elite level? What 2 from the other 6 that we talked about?
Which 2? 2 of the other 6.
So if I said just 1, then we would have your next question answered. So what 2 have the best chance of leaping up into the elite, in your opinion?
This year?
This year. By the time we get to the conference tournament when the awards start coming out.
Okay, next year, I would not hesitate. I think I would say Ciezki, because like I said, with Marisa gone, she's gonna pop. But this year, I think I would put Amaya Battle as one of them. Like I said, oozing with potential. Love her ceiling. And this is tough. I mean, statistically, it's gonna be Smikle. But again, like I said, Smikle is just such a high volume player that in terms of actually who I would maybe want on my team if I were drafting a team, or who just in terms of on court, I test, if you will, analytics, I test. They're both important in my opinion. I think I would go Maty Wilke. I think like you said, if they can start getting her more shots and use all the different abilities that she has, I think she can really kind of leap into that next level too.
I would say this in terms of Maty Wilke, not just because they were backcourt teammates. I think she has every single skill set and ability that Mara Braun does, that she could be, if they would give her the keys like the Gophers have to Mara, I think she could have a similar impact because she has all the same similar skill sets that Mara does. I think she's an inch or 2 shorter, but I think she has all those same skill sets that Mara
I think
does.
she's a little more physical too. So she's maybe given up a little bit, but from what Mara has, but maybe has a few things maybe Mara doesn't have too. So yeah, she's definitely another high ceiling player.
My 2, I can't vote against them. It's Braun and Battle. Those 3
Flaunt that
together,
bias, Eric. Flaunt it.
those 3 are going. I mean, the team relies so heavily on them, night in and night out, barring injury. Those 3 are going to play the most minutes. I mean, in that Penn State double overtime game, Battle played 40, Mal played 45, Battle played 43, Braun 40. I mean, they didn't look tired. They just, those 3, I'm telling you that I wish I could give the award 3 different ways because they're the class. But I think, and especially, I'll even say this more on Mal, her calm, like you don't know if she's just hit a game winner. You don't know if she's down 20. You don't know if she's had a bad day, if she's had a good day. she just keeps the same focus and that ability to run out. I think she's going to catch Big Ten bigs, at least at first. Maybe kind of being a little bit lazy, maybe not understanding that she is the tank running from block to block. I think they both have the ability to jump up there. Now, does it happen this year? I don't know. I would love to see it. It would help us in the Big Ten if we had 3 All-Stars coming up, but now the last question, that's why I made you do 2. We know kind of, I think 80% of it. Who is your all-freshman team? To wrap up this podcast, who is your all-freshman team?
Like right now or end of season?
I'll do prediction end of the season. Who do you think gets it at the end of the year?
All right, because right now, like I said, Mendelson doesn't deserve anything. She's played 26 minutes all year. End of season, though, Mendelson's on it for me. And then, well, I kind of already answered the first 4 that I think are in the top tier. And that includes Mendelson. And my 5th one, again, I think it's wide open, like I said, but I'm gonna go with Amaya Battle. I'll throw you a bone, Eric. I'm gonna go with Amaya Battle as my 5th one, because I think she is, like I said, a high ceiling player, and we're gonna continue to see her grow next year and the year after. But even she could be one of those players. Some players kind of like almost you grow during the off season, but some players almost like do the same thing, not the same thing, but from non-conference to conference, they sort of find another gear too. And I think she's the player that's on this list of the next 6 that's the most capable of doing that.
I love it. I'm a fan of that answer. So mine, the
Yours.
regular 4, Mendelson, Garzon, the Braun Mamba, and McMahon. I honestly don't think one of the other 2 Gophers will get it, and this is why. I think voters will split votes. I think it's going to be hard to look at those 3 and also some where Braun, I think, has clearly kind of stood out above the 3 and honestly, I think she stood out more so because of its flashiness. You have a game
Mhm.
winner. You're having, you're putting these fourth quarter runs fantastically, hitting these big threes in a row, getting rolling. I don't know if voters, and this is not, I guess maybe it's a knock on voters. I don't know if they're smart enough to understand to not pull votes away from Mallory and Amaya and like evaluate them as individuals and not look at them as like, well, they both help each other. They both zeroed out. I'm gonna kind of do a cop out. I think it'll be Smikle. I keep saying her name wrong. I need to work on my
Yeah,
pronunciation.
you got me saying it wrong now. Smikle. I don't think it's Shma. I
I
think
want to
it's
say
just
Schma.
Smikle.
I watched.
It,
What
it
is it?
sounds, it almost like sounds better that way, but I'm pretty sure it's just
I
Smikle.
think it's like Schmichael. So Schmeichel.
Like, but Smikle.
I
Smikle.
think she will get it, and because
Oh.
almost going back to, I don't know if the voters are smart. I think they'll see that she's probably going to be staying around 15 points a game. She'll probably stay in the top 20 in the conference. She'll be the second leading freshman because let's be honest, the Brown Mamba's not coming that far down, and so she will stay the second leading freshman. I think they'll give it to her. I would, but once again, as bias coming out, I would love to see. I'd love to see it be a 6-player tie and have the last one be Braun in battle or Braun battle higher all on that.
Well, I will say I agree with you. Back to what I said earlier about whether it's like what I would vote for or prediction, those are different things because I would vote for battle, but I agree with you that I think it will be Smikle because for the same reason, points per game. We already talked about. I don't want I don't mind you throwing shade on voters. I'll throw shade on voters all day in any conference, any award, doesn't matter. Voters don't know what they're talking about.
I
That
mean,
not all voters. There's some smart ones out there. I don't mean I don't mean to throw a blanket, but
I
I
like
do
having this
think voters
conversation.
will
I think player of the year is pretty much wrapped up until she graduates.
yeah.
Yeah, until she graduates, which I would love it to be 2024. I'm guessing probably 2025. She'll stay for the COVID year.
I think Caitlin Clark's staying as long as she can, but I could be wrong. I mean it's better for her than the WNBA with NIL now, who
Why
knows?
do
But
why do you think
that's
the WNBA pushed back their expansion date?
yeah,
They're waiting for
yeah.
Clark and the Beckers draft to come out.
Yeah.
They're
That's
waiting.
that I don't know if you're wrong about that. That's kind of a side tangent, but I do think I don't know if you can be second in the conference in points per game among freshmen and not get voted to the all Big Ten team. I'm not sure if I would vote for her, but I think I don't know if you can do that and not have enough people vote for you to get on it. So I do think she will.
Bonus question, your prediction of how it will go. How many freshmen end up on first or second team All Big Ten?
Oh, that's tough. You got to remind me now how many are on first team and second team.
They go 10 each.
10 each. Okay. Um, you're putting me on the spot here. I don't know. I'm just kind of going through my head of like who all I would put above like Mara Braun, for example, on first team. And it
0.
depends too. I mean, in theory, like Grace Berger, JC Sheldon, players like that, you like to think are going to be back in time to have enough games under their belt to be on the first team. But no one can really guarantee that, right? With what we know. And so uh it's tough too because if Sheldon's injury lingers and she only plays like 8 games this year, she's not gonna be first team. Even it doesn't matter. Like she's easily one of the best players in the conference. But um, let me just pull up the conference list here off the top of my head. Clark and Sonano locks. Sheldon Berger if they get enough games locks. Jazz Shelley lock. That's 5. Taylor Mikesell lock. That's 6. Um,
McKenna.
7. I'm glad you said that. I don't know why I left her out. Makira Cook, I think. 8.
Illinois.
Yep. Um, just going through which teams have I not thought of it. Michigan. Well, you know what? That's 10 right there if you want to give Michigan's pair of players
Kaiser
first
and
team.
Leah
Kaiser and
Brown.
Emily Kaiser and Leah Brown. But so now this is all top of my head because I didn't know you were gonna ask me this. Do I think a freshman can crack those 10? Let's just assume Sheldon and Berger get enough minutes. And I said Mackenzie Holmes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's just assume Sheldon and Berger get enough minutes get enough games, I should say, to be first team. Can one of those freshmen crack the 10 that we just listed?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I think Braun should be over Cook and McKenna if they can't beat her.
Okay.
If their teams go 0-2 against her, they can't beat her. I think she'll
Okay.
be ahead of them.
Well, I'm going to disappoint you, Eric, but I will say right now, I don't think Minnesota's beating Illinois.
Hey, we beat Penn State, and
We did.
I'd say Penn State's better than Illinois.
I disagree.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
See, we were under the same understanding that I thought you thought Illinois was worse than Penn State. Fair.
No, not anymore. They were. I think Illinois is the biggest turnaround, one of the best stories in the country. Illinois was just no way around it. Straight trash for last year for a long time.
For
But
the
that
last
team
20
can
years.
compete, man. Like forever, basically. That team can compete, though, man. I think I'm gonna say this, Eric. This is bold. I think Illinois got a real shot to at least be on the bubble.
They're on the bubble now, per Charlie Cream. He has them in the last
They
4 years.
are. They are. They should be. If the tournament started today, Illinois actually absolutely should be in the conversation. Will they keep it up? I don't know. The way they're shooting, it's hard to shoot that well for a full season. The way that 3 or 4 of their players are knocking down threes, including Makira Cook. But I mean, you look at the last 2 games, what they've done. Makira Cook's been sick. They haven't even needed her. They went on the road to Missouri, won by double digits. Missouri also maybe a bubble team. I don't know what Charlie Cream says.
He
They went on
hasn't
the road
even
without their
out.
leading scorer and won by double digits. So, and we already talked about the Indiana game. The games that aren't against that top competition that they've been playing, that in the past they used to win by like 10 against nobody state. Now they're winning by 40. And so I think Illinois is better than Minnesota. I think they're better than Penn State. They're better than Wisconsin. They're better than Rutgers. I think they're going to give some people some headaches in the Big Ten this year.
I'm excited to see that game because you're getting a text from me if we beat him at the barn.
Yeah, I'll text you either way, but I'll go ahead and eat my words if Minnesota wins that game.
So no freshmen on the first team. How many of the ones we talked
Well,
about?
I'll say if Sheldon and Berger don't get enough games, I think we could see freshmen on the first team. But I think right now both of them would be expected to be back in time to get enough games. So I will say no freshmen on the first team. Yeah.
I'll disagree and say Mara. Even maybe not Cook. I think she should be ahead of McKenna.
Okay.
If they beat Penn State twice
Okay.
and Mara stays ahead of her scoring. Because I think right now she's the only two ahead of her, I think, are Clark and Holmes.
Okay. McKinnon's got to be close. What's she at? You have it on your little sheet there?
Oh, I do not, because she wasn't a freshman.
Yeah,
She wasn't a freshman.
good point.
I think Mara dropped from 19 down to 18 after today, so she's at like number 5 or 6 in the conference. So maybe she's ahead of her now, but at 19, the only two ahead of her were Holmes and Clark.
I'm gonna try to look up McKenna Marisa here, points per game, real quick. But I also, off the top of my head, I want to say Illinois plays Minnesota twice too. Is that right?
We do. We're at Illinois. No, at home January, on the road in February.
Okay, yep. So I'm gonna say I think Illinois wins both of those games. McKenna Marisa's at 17.6. So you said Braun is down to 18 after today. She was at 19. So
18 even. She went down from 19 even.
that one could be close.
I'm nervous because our next game now is at Penn State when we play them, and it took double overtime by 2 to beat them in Minnesota.
Yeah. Penn State. Wait, Minnesota's next game at Penn State?
The next time we play Penn State, it's on the road. We're the next
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say it looks like it's like 7 games from now, but you're right. Yeah, January 18th, Penn State hosts Minnesota. I think Penn State's gonna be favored in that one, but anyone could win. That one could determine some individual stuff though too. You're right.
So last question, then I'll let you go for the night. We're doing another prediction.
All
Of
right.
all the 10 players we talked about, in your opinion, who will be the best player once we get to senior night for all these 10?
That's a great question. Wow.
I stumped them. I stumped.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess you just stumped me. I gotta think about it. I think it's gonna be, it's funny. I love Yarden Garzon. I've hyped her up so much. But I think I have to go with either Mara Braun or Maggie Mendelson. If you make me choose, probably have to go with Mara Braun. But I think it's one of those questions that there's really it's tough to answer. That's why I'm stumbling over my words
Because
here.
there's 4 years,
really
there's
tough.
always injuries, the transfer report, everything like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, half these players aren't going to be in the Big Ten 4 years from now. So the way the transfer portal is, so who knows? But I'm just trying to think who has the most potential. I mean, Yarden Garzona has so much potential too. I don't know. I would go with Mara Braun, but I do think Mendelson and Garzon, I do think have a really good case for it. And I think it's another one that's just wide open and it'll be fascinating to watch. I'm sure I'm going to be wrong because who knows, man? Who knows? That's why it's fun.
I will go with mine. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be wrong. Mara Braun. The Braun Mamba is going to be celebrating coming close to breaking Bantam's record as a senior. Well, maybe. Bantam has psychotic records. So Bantam's up there in the 3,000s some. So maybe
I
not.
think
But
Mara Braun's ever going to score 60 whatever points, what Rachel score, 62?
she scored 60 in the double overtime against Northwestern on
60.
Super Bowl Sunday.
All right. So is Mara ever going to score 61?
She might need to if we don't get her much help in the recruits the next couple of years. I'm just saying. Battle right now. I stand by the statement. The 3 freshmen are the lifeboat circling the Titanic, and they are trying to find live bodies to come help us turn this program around. But they're doing a pretty good job. I will say this, to give them one more last bias. You're 8-5. If you take out the Iowa loss by 23, your 4 other losses are by combined 19 points. And in all 4 of them, at Virginia, at NDSU, versus Kentucky and versus Wake Forest, you were within 1, tied, or ahead by 1 within the final minute of the game.
Virginia's not a bad loss anymore. That's another team. That used to be a bad loss, but that's another team that's really turned things around. So
and they had the ball down 19, down 1, so we had our chances. We couldn't.
Yeah, Virginia really tried to give you guys the game with all those free throw misses.
Man, that Lehigh, we didn't have the Lehigh Magic. It hurt. I said Wake Forest, we had a chance. Kentucky had a chance. I said and I said I'll besides the Iowa game, I always take that out because it's Iowa, let's be honest. 4 losses by a combined 19 points for a team that starts 3 regular freshmen, 1 redshirt freshman, and 1 sophomore. I'll take it.
Could be a lot worse.
That's why I'm not looking forward to the next 2 games. So if Calvin asks, I'm not watching the Maryland or Ohio State game. I'll be hiding under a pillow. No. But I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. There's no one else I'd rather discuss this with because I knew you were going to keep my bias at bay. I knew you were going to keep me in check, which, by the
Oh, I
way,
tried to bring out your bias. I love it.
I still stand by MVP.
I went against it though.
MVP is still happening in 2023. MVP, she coming back. It's her team now. MVP. We'll do that video a whole nother time. But Calvin, once again, where can everyone find you besides her hoop stats, which I can say fast now?
Yeah, man, you're right. It's a tough one to say. Her hoop stats. Her hoop stats. You mean where's my work been at?
Where can everyone find you on social media if they want to yell at you? Like they want to yell at us.
Oh yeah, if you want to hate on all my takes, of course. C Wetzel 31 on Twitter, on everything actually, Instagram, whatever. But yeah, hate mail, all that, DMs open. So everything that I was wrong about, hit me up. Yeah, looking forward to
I am at Eric Jr. All-Star on all of them. And by the way, Mara Braun, I'm fighting for you if you're watching this. No, she knows. The Braun Mamba knows. I got the t-shirt. I bought the t-shirt. We're ready to go. We're supporting the Braun.
Yeah, why didn't you wear it? Did it not come in yet?
No, I have it. I wore it to a game. They lost. So
Yeah.
they lost.
Oh,
I can't wear it on
right.
game day. They lost the one day I wore it. It was actually the Virginia game. I wore it and they lost by 3, so it had to be retired. I have to wear the same when they won. So
Right. That's true fandom, Eric. Respect. Respect.
So, Calvin, you have a fantastic night. Enjoy watching the Big Ten. Once again, we're going to start the Get Calvin to Minnesota to watch a Gopher game live. Maybe the Illinois game. Maybe, I don't know. We can have him in there so people can ask him directly what he thinks about when the Gophers beat him. Maybe. Man, I might have to like hide from a pillow if they lose that game.
Oh, are you gonna clip that and put it all over Twitter when I'm wrong and when Minnesota wins?
That's the preview for this video. You saying
All
they're
right.
going to beat Minnesota?
All right. All right. There we go. I'm always going 2-0 in those games. Stand by it.
Thank you, thank you. We'll do more videos. I said maybe we'll find out the end of the year so we can get together and see which freshmen lived up to the hype when Mal and Amaya get onto that first freshman or that freshman team. We can see how this went. So, any last thoughts from Calvin for the Big Ten freshman, Big Ten conference, women's basketball, anything?
No, I mean, watch women's basketball. It's lit. Go to games, show up, get TV subscriptions, whatever you got to do. Get the game on your TV, Big Ten or otherwise. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Completely non-Big Ten related. I'm going to shoot my shot. Camera Brink, please come out in the 2023 draft, and the Lynx can draft you at number 2. Last prayer. Anywho, I don't think it's going to happen, but I thought I'd shoot my shot. Please, Camera Brink, we would love you as a Minnesota Lynx. But you have a good night, Calvin. Once again, thank you so much for all of that. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.